STIL was founded in 1984 and the Swedish Personal Assistance Act was passed in 1994. It took us only 10 years to push through to our first goal. Sometimes a reform is seen to be the result of an effort of a specific people. And it's true that we received invaluable support from certain politicians, but they never would have done what they did without us taking the initiative. This is why I want to pound my own chest and emphasize how important our work has been, and what we did can be done again if only you follow a certain specific principles. Here are some of them. You can see them in the work STIL is still doing today. Principle number 1. We were extremely careful always to use the right terminology. We never spoke about care, only about personal assistance. It was a way for us to show that we don't consider ourselves sick. 2. We constantly pointed out that we didn't agree with how others defined us. When we negotiated with the authorities, we saw ourselves as business people instead of patients. We were there to solve their problems, not our own. 3. Another thing that we were very careful with was always to speak for ourselves. Unfortunately, sometimes we let outsiders lead our organizations. There is no better way to show that you look down on yourself and doubt your own abilities. 4. In our work with opinion building, we built alliances with anyone who supported our demands. At the same time, we worked to divide the opposition by pitting our part against the other. We got them to start competing to show who could back us the most. 5. One important aspect of this process was taken care of by the media. We had lots of media coverage because our ideas were new and exciting. Almost everything written about us was positive. Because of this, politicians wanted to share the media limelight and be part of what we were doing. 6. Although it was important for us to build alliances, we didn't do it no matter the cost. For example, it took a while before the traditional disability movement gave us their support. But we were never particularly worried about that. Even though we had only about 20 members in the beginning, we chose to go our own way. 7. In other words, one important principle is not to worry about how many people you have. This isn't what determines whether or not you are successful. In time, if your idea is strong enough, more people will join your cause. But in the beginning, only the truly courageous join in. 8. The independent living movement is built upon the belief in personal responsibility. If you want something in society to be changed, then you have to take responsibility to getting it done. You can't just sit at home and twiddle your thumbs. Not even just talking about it is enough. You have to show what you mean by what you do. That's why we started our project. 9. Another important principle is that of cross-disability. We ignore what kind of disability people have, because the nature of the discrimination each of us faces is very much the same. Disability is a political issue rather than a medical one. 10. The principle of cross-disability also means that we treat each other with solidarity. Everyone is welcome, even those who can't speak for themselves. 11. We express our solidarity through our methodology of peer support. Peer support is about serving as a good role model for each other. Seeing how someone else has solved a specific problem in their life gives me invaluable knowledge that strengthens me in my own situation. 12. Peer support aims at moving a person towards empowerment, a development in which we both as individuals and as members of a group dare to take our rightful piece of the pie. In this way, the independent living movement has chosen always to work both for the individual and for the group. We have to strengthen each other individually to give us the strength to demand our rights in society together. Every disability means that life gives you a hard knock, both physically and mentally. You face enormous challenges, regardless whether you grow up with your disability or get it later. It's not unusual for these challenges to contribute to deteriorating sense of self-confidence and life categorized by hopelessness, passiveness, and apathy. This doesn't exactly foster the ability to stand up and make your rightful demands for both your own life and the life of others. A certain part of the challenges we meet every day are medical. This is because every disability is either caused by an illness or an injury. But you also have to face the challenges of an existential nature. Losing one or more body function always involves going through a life crisis that includes part of the mourning process. When you get home from a hospital or a care facility, you are met with a number of practical challenges. You discover right off that you have to find new ways of doing things that you used to take for granted. No matter how much you try, you always run into something that you can no longer do on your own. And so, in one way or another, you become dependent on others. When you become dependent on others, this leads to a loss in status. This is true both in your professional life and within your family. Some people eventually choose to cope with the dependency through personal assistance. But getting your assistance to work can actually be one of the greatest challenges you have in life with a disability. A predominant part of those who grow up with one or more disabilities never join the workforce. They have to survive throughout their lives on a pension at the subsistence level. They miss ever getting a pay raise or getting bumped up in income bracket. Those who become disabled later in life also risk getting hit with financial setback. Not getting a job also means getting left out. For many disabled people, the lack of access to society increases their isolation. The prejudiced behavior of the general public also plays a part. For me, never a day goes by that someone doesn't turn to my assistant instead of me. On top of this, disabled people tend to become outsiders socially. The proportion of people who are single is considerably higher among us than among everyone else. Despite the Swedish Personal Assistance Act taking us a gigantic step forward, our daily lives are still filled with significant challenges. There is much left to do even in Sweden. Unfortunately, much governmental work in Sweden has been done in recent years to reverse the gains we made with personal assistance. Every commission on these issues has been about how to save money. Not one commission has been appointed to determine how the positive results on the personal assistance reform can be translated into other areas. There is a reason for this, and it is because we've been lazy. When you reach a difficult goal successfully, it's incredibly easy to relax and believe it's going to be easy sailing from then on. This means you give others room to maneuver. In chess, you talk about losing a tempo. This is what has been happening in Sweden the last 10 or 15 years. What made personal assistance reform a great step forward was that politicians choose to listen to those of us who knew what we are talking about and who knew what will work. But the reform was also a success because it was a structural reform that affected three crucial levels at the same time. Specifically, it was a redistribution of resources and a redistribution of power and rights by law. When we at Steel began demanding personal assistance, most of the traditional disability organizations were busy asking for changes in the system already in use. It took time for them to realize that our concept was more successful. They came to understand that we need structural changes, not just cosmetic ones. Finally, they understood that what we need is a redistribution of resources, a redistribution of power and rights by law. It is now time for us to make additional demands for these kind of structural reforms. Otherwise, we will never come to terms with the social structures that limits us, such as discriminations in the labor market, the inaccessibility in our environment, and the prejudice we get from general public. It is high time for us to make another great push forward into our future.